then we will talk about
Okay,
these
well,
things, alright?
it all started when I was about 16 years old. I had seen this documentary on horticulturists and some of their studies with various herbs, spices, garden, things like that. Particularly this one man, Dr. Oh, was it? He was fascinated with growing dill in his garden. And so this particular documentary spent about, I want to say, 2 hours or so going through growing dill weed and the health benefits of dill. And I remember being, from a young girl, thinking, this is what I want to do. I want to be an expert. I want to be an expert in this. So I would start watching all these documentaries. And when I say documentary, remember, we weren't watching movies or anything. These were biographies. But thankfully, in our library, some of the librarians would spend some time reading these biographies aloud, and we would call them documentaries. And this was before the modern day documentary was born. Because, of course there wasn't television or anything like that. And I was fascinated with these stories. Just simply fascinated. So I would go out in my father's backyard. And I started a garden. Didn't know anything about it. Didn't know what to do, what the best kind of nutrients to put in the soil was. Didn't know anything about ladybugs. I just got a shovel and I started digging. and I dug and I dug and I dug, as it would. And I found any seeds I could. So the first couple things I grew, what were they? I'm trying to remember. It could have been pine cones that I tried to plant, if I remember correctly. And I had a heck of a time trying to grow pine cones, because as a kid, you think anything grows. I planted a rock because I wanted more rocks to grow. That didn't work. But I took really, really good notes. I still have them today, actually. Poison ivy was my next adventure. I didn't realize that it could hurt you, so I had a big old patch. Are you there? Maybe we got disconnected for a minute.
No, ma'am. We are not disconnected. I can hear you. I'm hearing everything.
Yes, sorry. There was a big old patch of poison ivy, and I used to dare the neighborhood kids to walk through it. that was terrible. That was terrible. Anyway, where were
sorry
we?
To interrupt you.
What were we talking about? Oh, the gardens. Yes. So when I was 17, maybe 16, the garden had grown quite a bit, and in a couple of years had gone by, of course. So, I had done oak seeds. Turns out that was poison oak. And many trips to the doctor and the hospital later. I learned it would probably be a good idea to go get some seeds from a gardener. And that's when I met Steve. And he was stone cold, straight from Austin. Steve was a great farmer. He sent me home with some carrot seeds. And the most peculiar thing I had ever seen in my life. A garden gnome. And if you have not had the privilege of seeing a garden gnome, I highly recommend. Are you in front of your computer right now?
Yes, ma'am. I'm in front of my computer.
I highly recommend you go on to the internet and look up Garden Gnome. They have 1,000 yards there like you wouldn't believe. And that is truthfully what brought me where I am today, what made me the woman I am today, and dare I say, what holds the future for our species. I still remember the first time I placed the gnome in my garden. And I laid down and I looked up in the sky. And you could see the rain clouds coming in, and you knew it probably wasn't a good decision. Well, I looked over, and I looked over to my left. No, it was my right. I looked over to my right, and there was the gnome looking right at me, with that little smirk on his face. And I looked into his eyes, and I said, the stories he could tell, all the plants that he's seen, the herbs and spices that he's grown. And so I asked him, I said, what's it like? What's it like spending all of your time studying nomenclature? I forgot exactly what I asked him. I was trying to be funny. He didn't laugh, of course. He just looked at me. But I could feel it. I could feel something. And at the time, I couldn't put my finger on it, or my green thumb, as it would. But I later figured out that these gnomes, they can talk if you just listen hard enough. So now, I spend most of my time really cataloging any garden gnome I come across, telling their stories. I'm hoping to write a book someday. Hoping to write a book. So far, I've documented over 4,000 different sightings, and all told, I would say somewhere over 9,000.
Ma'am, sorry to interrupt you. Are you there? Can you hear me?
Somewhere over 9,000 different.
Ma'am, can you hear me?
You're breaking up.
Are you there? No, ma'am, I'm not breaking up. Can you hear me now?
It was pure magicalness. Pure magicalness.
No, ma'am, can you hear me? Sorry to interrupt you.
Yes, sorry. What were we talking about? I'm sorry. What were we talking about?
Ma'am, we are talking about the computers first. All right. First of all, we need to connect the computers. Then we will go ahead and talk about these things. All right. First of all, let me connect the computer.
Magicalness 3. Thank you
the computer
for
issue. All right.
What on earth, you guys? Holy crap!
Can you hear me?
Harmless idiot.
Hello, are you there? Hello?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. I'm here.
Thank you guys so much. Welcome, new friends.
Okay. I'm sorry. I think the phone was breaking up. Did you have a question about the garden gnomes?
No, ma'am. I don't have any questions right now. First of all, let me connect the computer because you have a virus on your computer. We need to connect that computer so that we can start troubleshooting work. In meanwhile, we can talk about these gardening. All right?
Okay. Have you ever started a garden?
No, ma'am. I've never done it.
You should. And if you do, call my number, and I will send you your first garden gnome. You'll love him. You'll have to watch your ankles, though. they tend to get a little ferocious if you don't garden right. Well, why did you
Alright.
call me? Why
Ma'am,
did you call me? Were you interviewing me for something? Are you with the paper?